Hello guys, welcome to Movie Splash. Hope you guys will be doing well. Today we are going to talk about 1st to 18th episodes of animated series Death Note. Death Note is a Japanese manga series of the same name written by Tsugumi Oba and illustrated by Takeshi Obata. The story follows Light Yagami, a genius who discovers a mysterious notebook, the Death Note, and is granted by the supernatural ability to kill anyone whose name is written in its pages. Before we get into the video, please do consider to subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to stay notified about all my upcoming recaps. Let's get into the video without any further delay. The movie starts with a scene in Tokyo, showing a disaffected high school student named Light Yagami watching out of the window of his class. Just then, he sees a book falling down on the ground. It makes him suspicious about it. After his class, he waits for a while and thinks a little and then goes where this mysterious book has fallen. He reluctantly picks it up. It has the title Death Note. Light reads it and thinks, is it the Book of Death? He opens it and reads how to use it. The name of the person written in this notebook shall die. It is written in the first line. He closes and leaves this book there and goes from there thinking it is pretty lame. Being curious, he brings this book home and gets to know that this notebook can kill anyone as long as the user knows both the target's name and face. He has to write the cause of the death within 40 seconds, otherwise the target will simply die of the heart attack. Initially terrified of its godlike power, Light considers the possibilities of the Death Note's abilities and goes to write something. Meanwhile, he hears a news on the TV of the hostage of some people on a daycare center. He hears the name of the criminal and impulsively writes it in the notebook, waiting for 40 seconds. After 44 seconds, he still does not hear any news of his death and tries to switch the TV off. Just then, he hears the news of the death of the criminal with a heart attack. It shocks him. He does not believe it and tries to convince himself that it is just a coincidence. Afterwards, he goes to his school and thinks on whom he should try this. While leaving the school, he watches some people harassing a girl. He ignores them and goes inside a store. When he continuously hears their laughter and screams of the girl, he decides to write their names in the notebook. He also writes the reason of the death of one of them, that is by hitting by a truck. He counts for 40 seconds. He has written too many names in the notebook, including high-profile Japanese criminals, then targets international criminals. 5 days after discovering the notebook, Light is visited by Ryuk, a Shinigami, and he gets scared seeing him. Ryuk tells him not to be scared and tells him that he is Death Note's previous owner. He tells him that you are not scared of writing this much names in this short time. Light asks him if he is there to take his soul with him. Ryuk tells him that he is not gonna do this. This notebook is now his property, and once it touches Earth, it must be in some human's custody. If Light doesn't want to keep it, he can give it to anyone else. But, in this case, he must erase his all memory related to this notebook. Light's mother comes into his room. Light opens the door, but his mother cannot see Ryuk. Ryuk is invisible to anyone who has not touched the notebook. He reveals that he dropped the notebook into the human world out of boredom and is amused by Light's actions. Light tells him that he wants to wipe off all the criminals in the world. Now Light is feeling so overwhelmed with guilt that he has killed so many people. He satisfies himself telling that he is just up to a right cause. The world will go towards the right direction. No one else could ever have done this. He keeps writing the names of world's most famous criminals, killing them all by writing the causes of his own choice. Ryuk says by this he'll be the only bad person in this world. He says he's working for the betterment of the world. He says he'll become the god of this new world. Ryuk gets amused by him. Ryuk follows him throughout the day. He speaks to him, but Light asks him not to talk to him as everyone can see him talking. Light's friend asks him for a hangout, but he refuses, saying he is busy today. Ryuk tells him he is not, but he tells unless he has something very important to do. In his room, Ryuk asks Light that why is he working so hard. He tells that he cannot afford wasting time, as he neither can affect his performance at the school nor his health, so he has to maintain his time well. As criminals around the world die from inexplicable accidents and heart attacks, the global media suggests that a single mastermind is responsible for the mysterious murders and name them Kira. Hoping to apprehend Kira, Interpol requests the assistance of an enigmatic consulting detective, known as L, to assist their investigation. The identity of L is not known to anyone. This displeases Light, who had been going to great lengths to keep the Death Note hidden. L tricks Light into revealing that Kira lives in Japan's Kanto region with a television broadcast. A humiliated Light swears to eliminate L. Police authorities discuss the Kira case with L. Upon inquiring about the time of death of the victims, L concludes that Kira is likely a student with a naive concept of justice. He requests data on how the victims were publicized and begins to suspect that Kira has access to police information, because the police officer in charge of the Kira case, sᴘʟᴠɪᴇ, is Light's father. Light can monitor the authorities' movements. Meanwhile, Ryak tells Light that he is being followed. He also explains that sᴘᴟᴠɪᴇ get the lifespans of people they have taken before their time, and their eyes can see everyone's name and lifespan floating above their heads. He gives Light the option to trade half his remaining lifespan for the eyes of a sᴘᴟᴠɪᴇ, just like Ryak's. Light tells Ryak that he is trying to create an ideal world, so he cannot sacrifice half of his life for the sᴘᴟᴠɪᴇ eyes. Light begins experimenting to find out how much control he has over how a criminal dies. Using this knowledge, Light devises a plan to find out who has been following him. He makes a drug dealer hijack a bus on which Light, and by extension, his follower, are passengers. During the hijacking, Light manipulates his tracker to reveal that he is Ray Penber, a federal agent from the United States employed by L and his associate Watari. 1 week later, Light follows Penber onto a train and forces him to write down the names of his fellow agents on a piece of the death note by threatening Ray's family. Because of the simultaneous death of these 12 FBI agents in Japan, including Penber, the police are scared to continue investigating, and the American president pulls the FBI off the Kira case. However, Penber's fiancée Naomi Misora, a former FBI agent, seeks to find Kira for revenge. The Japanese police, who were previously unaware that there were FBI agents in Japan, conclude that L hired them to investigate the Japanese police and their families, causing them to distrust L. sᴘʟᴠɪᴇ announces that because of the heightened stakes of the case, any officer who no longer wishes to work on the Kira investigation may leave, and will not be demoted for doing so. Only 5 officers decide to remain on the case. In an effort to repair his relations with the Japanese police, L meets in secret with the remaining detectives who want to work on the Kira case. He reveals his thoughts about how Kira might be following the murders of the FBI agents and pinpoints who the federal agents were tracking during that period. Meanwhile, Light meets a woman who introduces herself as ᴍᴏᴠɪᴇ. As the two talk, he realizes that she is Penber's fiancée and that she has worked out that Kira can kill by means other than heart attacks, information she plans to share with the police. Light decides that he must eliminate this woman. Light writes the name ᴍᴏᴠɪᴇ on the death note. When nothing happens, he coaxes her true name, Naomi Misora, out of her by pretending to work for L as the death note takes effect. Light informs her that he is Kira and watches as Naomi walks away to commit suicide. Meanwhile, Watari reveals his identity in the meeting with Light's father and the other detectives. He gives the detectives special gadgets embedded in clothing in the event Kira comes into contact with them or they are in trouble. Detective Shuichi Aizawa is sent to the police headquarters by L and just misses Naomi handing her driver's license to Light as a form of identification. L is close to discovering the identity of Kira. Misora's disappearance causes L to shortlist the people who were being tracked by the FBI at the time of Ray Penber's death. He requests surveillance equipment to be installed in the homes of those he suspects, including sᴘʟᴠɪᴇ's son. Light, however, becomes aware that he is being watched and has Ryak locate all the cameras in his room. He deceives the surveillance team by watching the news on a portable television hidden in a bag of potato chips and continues to kill the criminals being reported. L's suspicions are momentarily subdued, but he does not discard the possibility that Light may be Kira and decides to meet him in person. At the college entrance exams, Light notices a mysterious and eccentric student staring at him, who introduces himself as Heike Ryuga, the same name as a famous idol. Light is shocked when Heike Ryuga reveals himself as L since it would be too suspicious for L to die right after meeting Light. He decides to befriend L, gather more information about his true identity, and kill him at a later time. In a bid to profile Light's behavior, L challenges him to a game of tennis. L asks him some questions regarding the Kira case and invites him to help in the investigation. The two then receive news that sᴘʟᴠɪᴇ has had a heart attack and is in the hospital. Light promises to his father that he will make sure Kira is caught and executed for making him suffer. On the way out, L confronts and scrutinizes Light, still uncertain whether or not he is Kira. Light attempts a bluff and demands to be placed in a prison cell without television for 1 month to prove his innocence. L is satisfied but curious that Light should offer this proposition. Meanwhile, television station Secura TV receives audio tapes from an anonymous person claiming to be Kira. Secura TV is forced to broadcast several pre-recorded audio messages allegedly from Kira. L determines the messages are trying to gain public support for Kira and must be stopped, but the investigation team are unable to contact the station directly. Hirokazu Yukita, one of the investigators working with L, rushes to sᴘᴟᴠɪᴇ but mysteriously dies in front of the station, along with 2 police officers. The investigation team realizes that Kira no longer needs to know the person's name to kill, while L suspects this may be a new different Kira. Sōichiro Yagami, hearing news of the broadcasts, hijacks a bus and crashes into the sᴘᴟᴠɪᴇ lobby to avoid being seen while seizing the Kira tapes. With help of the police and the investigation team to block any view of his face while leaving, Sōichiro brings the tapes back to the investigation team headquarters. At the end of the episode, a young girl named Misa Amane is seen discussing her admiration for Kira with a shinigami named Rem, and she reveals that she has made the trade for shinigami eyes. Light meets with L and the detectives. To test Light's analytical skills, L has him listen to the recordings confiscated by the team to determine if there are any clues in the reader's voice. In this way, L concludes that Light cannot be Kira. The team then broadcasts a recording made by L and Light to trick the second Kira into replying. Misa unwittingly reveals important details about the properties of the Death Note and Shinigami when she responds, and Light begins to panic. In her reply, Misa demands that the first Kira meet her in person. Shocked and wanting to pursue this lead, the investigation team formulates a plan, while Light decides what to do. Meanwhile, Rem explains to Misa that she knows how to kill a Shinigami to make them fall in love with a human. Rem tells Misa the story of a Shinigami named Jealous who obsessively watched over Misa from the Shinigami realm. One night, as a deranged stalker threatened to kill both Misa and himself, Jealous wrote the stalker's name in his death note, ending his own life and adding the remainder of his lifespan to Misa's. Detective Tauta Matsuda and Light volunteer to go to Aoyama to investigate on the date mentioned in the journal entry. Light intends to find out who the second Kira is, and in order to keep his identity unknown to the Shinigami following Misa, he gets a group of his friends to surround them while they walk. Possessing the Shinigami eyes, however, Misa finds out that Kira is Light Yagami because his lifespan is the only one she can't see. Later, Misa confirms to the investigation team that she has found the real Kira. The team decides to change their approach and try to reason with her. They release a television broadcast condemning Kira as a heartless murderer who will kill anyone who discovers his identity. Furthermore, they offer to lessen the severity of the punishment the second Kira will face if she reveals information about the real Kira. Misa ignores this, finds Light and explains that she tracked him down because she loves him. After Light introduces Misa to Ryak, the two discuss their plans to get rid of L taking advantage of the situation, and of Misa's love for him. Light concludes that he can use her to mislead L while furthering his plans for a better world. Misa's Shinigami, Rem, however, threatens to write down Light's name in her own death note if Misa's safety is compromised. In the meantime, L is thrown off the trail by the second Kira and is confused by the new audio tapes purposely denouncing the police's attempt to make the first Kira appear as a pariah. L concludes that the two Kiras might have met and are working towards the same goal. Worried at the prospect that he might be murdered, as he is convinced the two Kiras have met, L demands that in the event of his death, Light should be arrested. Later, Light and L meet each other outside college. Much to the anger and frustration of Light, Misa appears and converses with the two. Minutes after Misa leaves, Light receives the news from L that she has been arrested on grounds of being the second Kira. Misa appears to be blindfolded and tied to a chair, while L instructs Watari to torture her to obtain information. A few days later, Misa relinquishes ownership of her death note, thus erasing her memories of its existence. Light decides to tell L that he thinks that he may be Kira subconsciously and wishes to be confined. Light's father also believes it is a good idea that he himself be confined to a cell as he cannot risk his emotions getting the better of him in this investigation. Light concocts a plan whereby he tells Ryak he will relinquish ownership of the death note at any time in a discreet discussion. While being monitored by L after Light's imprisonment, Kira's executions stop and L's suspicion is heightened. Light chooses this time to give up the death note, ensuring he will lose his memories of being Kira. His change in behavior puzzles L. Light goes from being calm to completely desperate. The Kira executions then resume and the new spate of killings confuses L in a last bid to determine if Light and Misa are the two Kiras. L and Sōichiro stage a stunt in which Light's father attempts to kill Light and then himself out of shame. Seeing Light and Misa's reactions to it, L intervenes and announces that he no longer suspects them of being Kira, although he is still suspicious over the fact that Misa's DNA was found on the audio tapes. Misa is released, but Light continues working on the Kira case. Elle and Watari move the investigation team's headquarters to a new building inside the city. Elsewhere, Rem speaks to a mysterious businessman about the Death Note. 8 businessmen then plan the next murder Kira will commit in order for the Yotsuba group to excel in the market. Elle proposes that he be tied to Light, causing a scuffle to break out in the new headquarters. It is some time until Kira begins killing again, which has Elle and Light thinking that Kira may be killing for monetary profit. Their suspicions lead them to the Yotsuba Group, a rich organization that dominates global markets. Kira is also reported to have been sending threats to politicians, and the investigation team is forced to conduct their operations in secret. As far as the public is concerned, the Kira investigation remains unsolved. Aizawa, initially unable to decide whether to stay on the task force or not, ultimately quits, angry at Elle for testing his loyalty. At this point, Elle brings 2 new members to the investigation team, Aber and Wedi. At the end of the episode, we see Aizawa sitting at the park after having just quit the task force. His wife Ariko and young daughter Yumi happen to be walking through the park and see him. Aizawa explains that he was given some time off, but begins to break down at this point as he really didn't want to leave the task force. The part ends with it. For next, stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also let us know how did you like the video in comments section. Thanks for watching. See you until then.